It's time to settle in because we have an incredible story for you today. Some people see rules as flexible guidelines, while others act as if they don't apply to them at all. But life has a way of catching up with those who push boundaries too far, and when it does, it's often a moment of pure poetic justice. This tale revolves around an ex-wife who seems to have conveniently forgotten the ex part of her title. A woman recently found herself in a deeply unsettling situation when she arrived home from work only to discover her husband's ex-wife casually strolling through their house, fresh out of the shower, wrapped in nothing but a towel. The shock was overwhelming, though she managed to keep her composure. The ex had access to the house because her daughter, who is also the husband's daughter, spent more time there than at her mother's place. She would occasionally visit, but this time, things had clearly gone too far. Without hesitation, the wife confronted the ex and demanded she hand over the keys, making it clear that she was no longer welcome to enter their home unannounced, especially when she wasn't around. Meanwhile, her husband had been fast asleep in the bedroom, completely unaware that his former wife was even in the house. When she questioned her 17-year-old stepdaughter about the situation, the girl explained that her mother had no intention of leaving until her father woke up. The wife's mind immediately went to the worst possible conclusion. Was this an attempt at seduction? Was the ex deliberately pushing boundaries to make her presence felt? At that moment, she decided enough was enough. The house keys were confiscated, and the rules were laid out. If the ex needed to come over for something truly urgent, she would have to ask for permission first. The confrontation ended with the ex calling her crazy, but in a surprising twist, the husband sided completely with his wife. That was the only reason the ex-wife eventually left without making an even bigger scene. Later, doubt crept in. Had she overreacted? Could she have handled the situation with more grace? But deep down, she knew that her decision had been justified. She didn't want the ex anywhere near her 4-month-old baby when she wasn't home. To clear any suspicions, she reviewed the security footage. The timeline confirmed that her husband had been asleep with their baby the entire time the ex-wife was in the house. He hadn't even known she was there. When he saw the footage, his reaction was even more intense than hers. Furious, he insisted on taking legal action and even suggested reporting his ex for trespassing. The online community had no sympathy for the ex-wife's behavior. Many pointed out that emergency access to a house does not extend to taking a leisurely shower and wandering around like she still lived there. Others questioned why she had a key in the first place, especially considering that their daughter was old enough to let herself in. As the situation escalated, the wife provided an update. The locks had been changed, and while her stepdaughter still had her own key, she was now fully aware that her father's trust was not to be taken lightly. The husband wasted no time in starting the process for a restraining order. The ex-wife's sister later reached out, revealing that the woman had been struggling with deep feelings of emptiness and insecurity, especially after the birth of their son. For years, the ex-wife had felt like she held a special place in her former husband's life. In her mind, the shared history and the child they had together gave her a sense of permanence. But the arrival of the couple's new baby shattered that illusion. Now, the reality was undeniable. Her ex had moved on, built a new life, and cemented it with a child of his own. That realization, it seemed, had sent her spiraling into irrational behavior. Her sister assured them that the ex-wife was seeking psychological help, but that didn't change the fact that her actions had crossed a serious line. The wife remained firm in her decision. She would not allow this woman near her family again. Though many sympathized with the ex-wife's apparent emotional struggles, they also agreed that it was not the couple's responsibility to manage her mental health. She had her own family to support her, and it was up to her to seek the help she needed. The priority now was protecting their home, their marriage, and most importantly, their newborn child. One thing was clear. The ex-wife had shattered whatever trust remained, and there was no coming back from this. The restraining order was moving forward, and any further violations would be met with serious legal consequences. The online response was overwhelmingly in favor of the wife's decision. Many pointed out how terrifying it was that the ex had such easy access to their home and questioned how far she might have gone if the situation hadn't been caught in time. Some even compared it to psychological thrillers like Fatal Attraction or the You series on Netflix. In the end, the wife found comfort in the support of those who reassured her that she had done the right thing. Doubt had crept in, but now she saw the situation clearly. This was not a moment of overreaction. It was a necessary stand for her family's safety and peace of mind. One thing is for sure. The ex-wife's days of playing house in someone else's home are officially over. Settle in, because we have another wild story that perfectly captures the chaos of the modern workplace. If there's one thing the corporate world does exceptionally well, it's turning even the simplest, most well-intentioned activities into a complete circus. This particular fiasco began when a company announced a friendly step tracking competition. Participation was optional, and the premise was simple. If the average step count of all participants reached at least 5,000 per day over 20 workdays, everyone involved would earn a half day off on a Friday. But there was an added incentive. The individual with the highest step count overall would win an Apple Watch. For one employee, this was the perfect opportunity to get back into a solid fitness routine. They loved running and set an ambitious goal of hitting 20,000 steps a day, fully expecting that this would put them ahead of the pack. However, on the very first day, a coworker named Dave logged 23,000 steps. Not one to back down from a challenge, the original poster, OP, pushed even harder and managed to hit 24,000 steps the next day. Dave, determined to stay ahead, logged 25,000. Soon, another coworker, Jenna, joined the race, and the three of them turned the competition into a fun, friendly rivalry. They engaged in daily chats about their workouts, pushed each other to do better, and for a while, everything was going well. It was clear that one of them would take the top prize, but more importantly, the entire group was on track to earn their half-day reward. Then, out of nowhere, Tiffany, who had been averaging between 10,000 and 15,000 steps per day, suddenly posted an eye-popping 65,000 steps in a single workday. To put that into perspective, OP had once run an entire marathon and only logged about 52,000 steps. Something wasn't adding up. Curious but giving Tiffany the benefit of the doubt, OP messaged her, expressing admiration and asking how she had managed such an impressive feat. Tiffany explained that she played volleyball and couldn't wear a step tracker during games, so she used a conversion chart that estimated steps per minute for various activities. This seemed reasonable at first, but the math still didn't make sense. OP pressed further, remarking that she must have played volleyball for 8 hours straight to reach that number. That's when Tiffany casually admitted that she had also counted bike riding. At this point, OP called BS. Biking isn't walking, and while it's great exercise, it doesn't belong in a step-tracking competition. OP politely but firmly pointed out that counting biking miles as steps didn't really fit the spirit of the challenge. Then, without hesitation, they went to Matt, the coworker managing the competition, to ask for clarification. Matt confirmed that biking was not supposed to count, as it wasn't comparable to walking or running, and it also gave an unfair advantage to those who owned bikes. He thanked OP for bringing it to his attention and said he would talk to Tiffany to make sure she understood the rules. Mere minutes later, OP received an angry message from Tiffany. She was furious that OP had reported her, accusing them of being unsupportive and overly competitive. She explained that she had recently lost a pet and had been struggling with depression and weight loss, so she had been incredibly proud of her steps that day. Not everyone, she pointed out, could be a marathon runner. OP hadn't expected such a personal and emotional reaction. Admittedly, they knew they were being a little cheeky by going straight to Matt, but Tiffany's dramatic response took them completely by surprise. Was OP the villain in this scenario? The online community weighed in, and the consensus was clear. OP was not the bad guy. Many people were quick to point out that corporate competitions like these often end up doing more harm than good, creating unnecessary tension between coworkers over something that should have been a fun and lighthearted challenge. Others noted that digesting ice cream also burns calories, but that doesn't mean those calories should be converted into steps. In short, Tiffany's approach was ridiculous. But the drama didn't end there. Despite Matt's attempt to clarify the rules, HR ultimately decided that Tiffany could keep her absurdly high 65,000 step entry, and moving forward, the rules would simply be made clearer for future competitions. Rather than backing down, Tiffany continued logging suspiciously high step counts every day, still lower than 65,000, but consistently in the 35,000 to 40,000 range. Considering they all sat at desks for 8 hours a day, this was still highly questionable. As the competition neared its end, the once tight race became even more intense. OP, Dave, and Jenna had all been posting high numbers before Tiffany's absurd 65,000 step day. But then things took a turn. Dave fell sick and missed a day, logging only 4,000 steps, which put him out of the running. Opie had an urgent work issue come up, and their step count dropped to 10,000 one day, pushing them too far behind to catch up. At that point, Jenna was the only one left who could possibly take Tiffany down. She went all in, waking up at 4 a.m. in the final days of the competition to maximize her steps. The highest she managed was about 41,000 in a single day, which was incredibly impressive, but in the end, Tiffany still beat her by a mere 250 steps. And just like that, Tiffany won the competition. At the next company-wide meeting, she had zero hesitation about accepting her Apple Watch and even gave a speech about how proud she was of everyone's effort. She gushed about how wonderful it was that the challenge had encouraged so many people to be more active and healthy, conveniently ignoring the fact that she had likely cheated her way to victory. Opie never responded to Tiffany's emotional message about her dog and depression. As much as they sympathized with personal struggles, this was still a workplace, and Opie had no interest in getting involved in unnecessary drama over an Apple Watch and an extra half-day off. At the end of the day, Tiffany had gamed the system, HR had let her, and the competition had become an absolute mess. What started as a fun fitness challenge had devolved into corporate chaos, proving once again that there's always that one person who finds a way to ruin a good thing for everyone else. Anyone who has worked in an office knows a Tiffany. The person who bends the rules to benefit themselves, refuses to admit any wrongdoing, and somehow always finds a way to play the victim when called out. It's frustrating, but as Opie learned, sometimes the best thing to do is call it out, step back, and let them reveal their own true colors.